Welcome to Constructive Conversations, Building Canada's Stories. I'm your host, George Affleck. Thanks for joining me as we dig into the foundations of Canada's construction industry, learning from leaders and pioneers in the business. Today, I'm joined by John Bockstael, CEO of Bockstael, a Winnipeg-based construction company with more than 100 years in the business. John is the most recent member of the Bockstael family to take the reins, and this will be a family business for a long time to come. Let's start the conversation now. John, thanks so much for taking the time today for the constructive conversation that I hope we're going to have here. The first thing that struck me when I was setting this up is that, of course, your name is the name of the company. That's not unusual, but then I discovered that Bockstael has been around in construction in one or another ways in Winnipeg for more than 100 years. That's no small feat, to be honest. Let's first talk about that to start with, and where Bockstael started, and how you guys are still around after 100 years.
Well, thanks, George. How are we still around after 100 years? My grandfather was an immigrant from Belgium, came here like many other immigrants, and to find their way and start a career here for themselves. First immigrating here in 1907 to get started, and then calling for his family to come and join him in 1911. And so he incorporated his company in 1912 and got going, basically building infrastructure for Western Canada, from grain elevators to railway structures, and then gravitating back to Winnipeg and working on schools, religious facilities, anything that the city of Winnipeg was in need of. And then my father came along after an attempt to join the effort in the war, but was sidelined by the Air Force and stayed busy in Air Force bases in Quebec, and then came home after a 6-month stint trying to figure out what he was going to do. And my grandfather anointed him as the successor to the company and said, "You're it. I'm getting too old for this, and I need somebody to take over." So alongside my grandmother, actually, my dad and my grandfather worked together collaboratively, and Grandma was the brains back at the head office, running payroll and accounting and everything else there. And Grandpa was the brains out in the field, and my dad had to learn from both of them in a big hurry. Fast forward again several years, my brother Larry, I credit with making sure this third generation survived, because he had a real passion for the business, and he stuck with it alongside my dad. This is in the early 70s. My dad was starting to have a growing interest in politics, and ultimately federal politics. So when that transition happened, Larry got our older brother David to join him, and they took over from my dad, bought out my father, and I joined them about 6 years later as an employee. The older brothers had to keep you as an employee first. Had to earn my stripes, and they eventually invited me in as a partner. So now my two brothers have retired. That all happened back in 2008 and 2012, respectively, and I've been joined by my sons, who are shareholders in the business, and my daughter also joined us in the last year and is working hard to help us on business development. So I think we're well set up to get to that fourth generation family business. So that's where we sit today.
Amazing. I mean, that to keep, I look at my business, I don't think my kids are interested, but, so to have so many generations interested. But how do you, beyond the family connections and that obviously that's a tie, how do you stay relevant as a company? I mean, things have changed a lot. And, your dad being involved in politics, probably maybe certainly in building and construction, politics is a lot of what you have to deal with. How have you stayed relevant, certainly in the last, say, 20 or 30 years, which I think has been a tumultuous time for the construction and building industry?
Yeah, well, very, very good adjective. How do you relevancy? As those transitions happen, sure, you had to be able to show ability and capacity, and work closely with your clients to meet their needs and meet their obligations. So it was all about capacity building with my brothers and I. We worked from a small volume when I first joined them, The volume we had then is probably less than what we do on an average sized job now. So, you just kept building up capacity and knowledge, working towards, tackling the next project based on what you knew best. And it's always been that way, working on, increased training, increased capacity, seeking out civil technology-based candidates, engineering-based candidates, people that have some technical knowledge and skills that can help drive your business forward. So again, remaining relevant to our clients is actually, you must have been reading our press clippings in our website or something, but it sounds a lot like a couple sentences in there where we talk about it was really important for us to grow with our clients who maybe had started out on a smaller scale, and we did something for them, and then they expanded, they needed more, and we had to step up and fill in to maintain that trusted relationship with those clients and just keep building that capacity so you could build what they wanted next.
With the generational evolution of the family of generations, but moving forward in the future, you've got your kids involved. Sounds like all the kids, but the future, what changes do you foresee for the future, and what are your kids saying? Hey, Dad, we should think about this now because this is relevant now more than ever. What are the kind of things that you're seeing that your company and all companies, maybe even Canada, should think about for the future?
Well, I'm supposed to be the guy with my eye on the horizon, trying to figure out what's coming next. And I've been helped a lot in the last 15 years through my involvement at the Canadian Construction Association to stay abreast of what's going on and in any association work, both with merit contractors and the Canadian Construction Association. Keeping your eye on the horizon to see what might be evolving next. Technology. The type of buildings we build today are spaceships compared to what we used to build. The degree of controls and bells and whistles that go into these buildings to make them a more comfortable living environment and operating environment. So there's so much more elaborate and sophisticated buildings in themselves. So to build elaborate and sophisticated buildings, you need people with some know-how and knowledge and technical ability there. What can be managed is probably the biggest challenge for any construction company. You're always looking at, there's this new idea, this new piece of technology, a new way of doing things. How do I onboard that? How do I invest in that? And which one? I always fear of going broke buying too many pieces of software, or no disrespect to any software developers, because they're all trying to make our business run better. But it's making sure you're harnessing the right one and moving that forward.
It's always challenging business, knowing, making investments. And if you listen to your accountant, generally they're to say, don't make any investments, don't spend any money, but that risk that you do, and sometimes it's the wrong decision, and you have to eat that. But if without doing it, change is just not going to happen. So taking those risks sound like it's crucial to growth, I would assume.
Yeah, and sometimes seeing the payback of a piece of technology is really hard to understand, and sometimes it's simply this just makes data and tracking and documentation all that much more thorough. Whereas you used to keep things in 6 different places, you can now amalgamate it all into one package piece of tracking software, construction software, or document management system. So that's on that side, in terms of how you administer and run your contracts. Out in the field, where you're delivering your hard product, the concrete that's going to be that's cast in place and it becomes a permanent fixture to the whole building from foundation to the roof. It's how do I do things more efficiently and technology will bring quality improvements for you. So again, it's which quality tool, which instruments do you want to be using in that work?
when you talk about the future and we think about the past, but certainly the last 12 months have been, to say the least, challenging. Uh, what changes have you seen in the industry during this economic upheaval, to say the least, the economic and everything upheaval, and the uncertainty? What changes and challenges have you seen in the last 12 months that potentially will help
You
you in the
know,
future?
yeah, just to, this, the last 12 months have been substantially different. I think I can look back over my 35 plus year career and think of different pockets of time when things felt like you were in deep, like it was not going to get any better for a while. Micro recessions or other challenges, just a lack of work overall, and then other government changes or that maybe affect your market. But in the last 12 months, it's been a bit of an upheaval. But what I saw that was so much. So important and so that came across so well for the industry was the amount of collaboration across the industry. Construction associations across Canada, grouped their thought, worked on the different challenges, looked at everything from the safety aspect of keeping people working in the workplace. And it was just total and complete collaboration right down the lines, right here in Winnipeg, sharing between different construction companies, trying to lead the way, come up with the best practice to keep the workplaces safe, clean, and making sure that everyone felt comfortable in the workplace, and then maintaining attendance and productivity. So there was right across, from every subcontractor, supplier, up to the competition, up to the to the local and the national associations. There was a great deal of collaboration that made it work so well.
The one of the areas that's really important to you is you're a big proponent of is diversity and equality in the construction industry. How can people work to ensure that's something that's crucial to all of them, all companies and businesses, across Canada?
Diversity is so important. How do you grow as a business, as an industry, if you restrict yourself to a smaller cross section of the population? If you limit yourself to different cultures, gender, and if you're not making yourself a welcome workplace, you're going to lose out in the end. You're going to lose out to other industries and forever struggle. So for us, it wasn't deliberate when we first started adding to trying to diversify our workplace, but candidates presented themselves. So we hired our first female project coordinator about 8 years ago, and for one, and she took hold. It's just like it was like, oh, we have a female interested in the construction industry. We interviewed and we hired her. And so it just goes back to, hey, if you're wanting to diversify, you have to go looking, you have to offer opportunity, you have to interview, and it's really create that gateway for them to have access to your industry. Make sure your company, your workplace is a safe environment, free of harassment, that is inclusive and welcoming to all peoples, and Indigenous, people of color, female, etc. I mean, it's just, I think the term everyone uses now is that make your workplace indicative or representative of the cross section of society we live in today. And it's okay. That's simply said. It requires an openness and an ability to break down barriers for them and create that gateway that welcomes them into your industry. So that's what we took. We reinforced our human resources policies. I'm vocal about it. We talk about it at time of recruitment for new candidates, that we expect that kind of attitude from them too. And it's working. It's building. and it's very important.
That's certainly what I've heard when I'm speaking to other companies across Canada in this series. Is that inspirational? Is what I hear a lot of. A lot of the people who work within the companies that I'm talking to is in order to bring in those women and people of different ethnicities, and you have to inspire them, and they have to get out there and be a part of the community as well. Are you finding that your staff are also out there championing diversity in the community and inspiring new generations to get involved?
I think from what I've witnessed, we have champions within our ranks. They're out there and they're speaking. They're endorsing us as a business, as a company. They're speaking to their colleagues and telling us what they think we're doing right, and telling us what they think we're doing right. And occasionally, and I maintain that, hey, look, I don't want to just be walking the talk. I don't want to just be talking. I want to make sure I'm walking that talk. So if you ever think I'm falling short on in that regard, you have to speak up. You have to let me know. And it involves some at times corrections to how you do things, and rethinking your approach. But it's all with the intention of making this a better workplace. So it's the getting endorsed by your own people is key. So obviously, if you're getting endorsed by your own people and they speak to their colleagues, they speak to their peers, they there's a lot of social events. Well, and in limited ways these days, but there's lots of social events and encounters where our industry has mixers and people talk between companies. So the other thing we need to do is sort of set an example for a lot of smaller companies that are maybe, I think we have a larger payroll than some, a larger number of employees than some in the city, and so we have ability to expand and provide options for more people. So it's all part of the career planning path as well.
More people is one of the challenges, though. I think a lot of people in your industry and the industry in general is the workforce and how far you have to potentially reach to find staff, skilled workers. Who, how would you address in general just the shrinking workforce and how do you attract younger people? I think is one of the big challenges I'm hearing a lot about. Getting young people into the industry is tough, and how do you do that?
As an industry, we have to do some public relations. We have to advertise about the the quality of the work we do. The what's a better word for it? The tangibility of what we do as an industry. We do some amazing things. So when you turn to people and say, hey, look, here's an opportunity to be part of big projects within the city, things that you can drive by for years and say, I was a part of that. So maybe building up a feeling of belonging, of contribution to an industry that can do so much. Every community project, every business project, every infrastructure project depends on people in this construction industry to build it. And we should be highly regarded for that contribution that we make, because it can be hard work, but it takes a lot of talent. And so you want to emphasize with young people today that their creativity, their inquisitiveness, their ingenuity would really be well applied here in the construction industry. We're not just shoveling mud and pushing a wheelbarrow and pounding the odd nail. Like we're doing some very sophisticated work here that is just growing with society and actually setting the table for society and industry to advance on all these technological gains. You can be amazed by all the technology around us. The computer industry, the internet industry, all of those drivers of that technological facilities, they still need a data center somewhere where they actually have to enclose all of that in a building. And we're the ones, the men and women that have to build that for them. So it's we're crucial. We're very crucial to the advancement of society.
With that in mind, some of the projects, can you, what in recent years, what are some of the projects or a project that really stands out to you as a company that, well, that's a sweet, that's a sweet one. I'm pretty proud of that.
I don't know that I've ever really picked a favorite. There's usually
like children.
project. Yeah, there's projects that that resonate with you. Those that you can see have made a difference in society, to your community. When you see that ribbon cutting and the importance changes it makes to those organizations, those are always very good feel-good moments. I mean, I could talk about, oh yeah, well, my biggest and most expensive and tallest or largest building is my favorite. There's always, year after year, there's probably a new one that replaces your last favorite, and it's successful projects that owners are happy to move into, appreciative of what you accomplish for them. Every one of those is sits high on the list. There's lots of community projects that make a lot of sense, and then those that help major companies in our city achieve what they need to achieve. We like to work closely with our clients, figure out their needs, their requirements, make sure we develop a budget that achieves what they want to achieve, and deliver it with quality and to the schedule they expect. So it's being that helping hand to these organizations that's the most gratifying.
On that note, then, John, I think that's a great place to end, because I think that's really what it takes. It's all the partnerships and working together with your clients and delivering great products and projects. And I think that's important. So thanks very much for joining me today.
All right. My pleasure, George.
I'm George Affleck. Thanks for joining me at Constructive Conversations, Building Canada Stories, where we dig into the foundations of Canada's construction industry, learning from leaders and pioneers in the business.